One more thing to try and book in my fantasy build for Money in the Bank 2023, and that is the U.S. title reign of Austin Theory, and honestly trying to make that title reign look better than it has been from the actual WWE, in my opinion. Austin Theory has just not had good booking. He was a joke when he won the Money in the Bank last year, which is kind of a reason why I think LA Knight probably shouldn't win it, because whoever wins it these days, it doesn't go well for them. Then he cashed in the Money in the Bank last year for the U.S. title, not even the world title, and lost. And then Triple H really thought he was doing something with Theory becoming serious and not wanting to be seen as a boy anymore. And then, yes, Theory does win the U.S. title eventually. But with Austin Theory, they still have his persona all over the place. His persona still goes back and forth if he should be this tough and confident heel, or if he's just a chicken shit heel still, like he was last year before he was still a boy or whatever. So his persona and development still all over the place. And now, over the past month, they put him together with Pretty Deadly, and Pretty Deadly are great. Not only as a comedy act, but Pretty Deadly are one of the only newer acts in recent years of WWE that actually has wrestling fundamentals down. They actually can do their fundamentals of pro wrestling well, which is great because enough people don't actually try and get the wrestling fundamentals down. It's like they skip the fundamentals of working punches and make it look real and have in-ring psychology just to learn, crazy moves. But Pretty Deadly is doing it right. But does Theory really fit as friends with Pretty Deadly? I don't think so. And they're feuding against the Brawling Brutes, and Theory has already beat Sheamus in a singles match thanks to interference, and then he pinned Ridge Holland in a 6-man tag. So I'm not really working with much here in how to build the U.S. title scene. So what I've decided to do with my little fantasy build is just kind of make it even deeper, even bigger. We're going to bring more people into the story to make it look like the U.S. title scene really has a lot going on, when in reality, Austin Theory is beating people that might actually deserve shots at the title. I don't actually know what they're doing with Austin Theory's booking. Like I said, it's just all over the place. There's no true rhyme or reason for his pretty bad title reign. And Triple H can't book a babyface to save his life, I'm convinced. The heels are overstrong all the time. He was a heel that made him famous. But almost every title, almost every story outside of now Seth Rollins is a heel overstrong. I think that's the biggest thing with Triple H's booking. But this isn't about Triple H's booking, where everything is too similar. Let's get to what I think the fantasy booking should be. Starting on the 6-9 SmackDown from Iowa, I would have the LWO call out Austin Theory wanting a title shot. Austin Theory will crack a joke saying he's not going to wrestle anyone over the age of 45 after beating Sheamus, so he doesn't think Mysterio deserves a shot because that's what he thinks the LWO is getting at here. But it is Santos Escobar that wants to step up and get a shot at the title. You would then have the Brawling Brutes interrupt, who aren't done with Theory either. And then lastly, I would have Pretty Deadly come out, of course, saying that if anyone is going to get a shot at their friend Austin Theory's title, they have to go through Pretty Deadly. So I'll keep the little relationship between Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly for now, even though I don't think it really fits. But a match would be set up between Escobar and Mysterio versus Sheamus and Butch versus Pretty Deadly. It would end in a no contest after everyone just ends up brawling with each other on the outside because Theory instigates the LWO and the Brutes. And I think I would end this little big old melee brawl with Pretty Deadly and Austin Theory being able to escape the ring, letting the Brutes and LWO brawl with each other. So you have the heels kind of outsmarting the faces here. Another person to kind of a little bit bring into the U.S. title scene, because I want to give him more of a story, being Cameron Grimes. I would have Cameron Grimes beat Corbin again, which puts Grimes in wanting to put himself in the running for the U.S. title. On the June 16th SmackDown from Lexington, Kentucky, Adam Pearce tells Theory that he must defend the U.S. title tonight. Someone from the Brutes or LWO or Cameron Grimes. He's going to let Austin Theory actually pick his opponent for the night. He feels like Theory has earned this as a fighting champion. Theory thinks long and hard about it and picks Butch. He'll pick Butch to go against tonight, kind of making fun of Butch's size. Then Corbin would get interviewed. Corbin would get angered in this interview after the interviewer would ask Corbin if he is trying to dig his career out of a hole by running to NXT. He makes the interviewer leave because he's so upset by the question. And then Scarlett would approach Baron Corbin and tell him that if he needs help with his Cameron Grimes problem, to talk to her. And Corbin walks off with Scarlett. Next up, Cameron Grimes would have a match against Santos Escobar, and Grimes would lose after Scarlett comes down to distract Grimes. On the same SmackDown, I would have Pretty Deadly defeat Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde of the LWO. And then lastly, for this story, I would have the U.S. title match between Austin Theory and Butch, which Pretty Deadly once again helps Austin Theory defeat Butch. Sheamus and Rich Holland would make the save when Pretty Deadly is trying to interfere, but Theory would still be able to beat Hothead Butch, because in that match, after Pretty Deadly comes out, Butch is trying to fight Pretty Deadly, which distracts him enough for Austin Theory to get the win. So you kind of keep Butch a little protected there, losing thanks to a bunch of interference and distraction. And Austin Theory just keeps on winning with his U.S. title. But he's also having a lot of people aiming for his U.S. title by trying to make his reign seem less bad than it actually has been, in my opinion. On the June 23rd SmackDown from Louisiana, from the back, Adam Pearce announces that tonight it will be Sheamus versus Santos Escobar versus Cameron Grimes to become #1 contender for the U.S. title at Money in the Bank. And then Pretty Deadly would appear on the Waller Effect with Grayson Waller for all three to run down the LWO. They would call out the LWO for doing a lot of losing lately, and the LWO booking has been weird. It's like since they became a group, they've done way more losing than winning. And then something I would have happen, which they would never do in the WWE today, and I can't blame them because society is so touchy, and social media especially is so touchy. But the WWE is a TV show, and these are personas, and pro wrestling has always just been personas. They have Lacey Evans in this weird Sergeant Slaughter-like gimmick. They've changed Lacey Evans' gimmick a billion times. But on Twitter, Lacey Evans is very spicy. She kind of plays up a conservative role on social media, but they never put it out on television. Just let Lacey Evans go out there and get extreme heat with a conversation about the LWO. Some extreme conversation about how the LWO is taking jobs from other wrestlers because they're just losing all the time, kind of playing up what the others have said about the LWO. And she could even say something like she's afraid the LWO is trying to become the NWO and just expand to more and more people and become the majority. So you could bring the LWO out and Zelina Vega to get in Lacey Evans' face. Like, the WWE is afraid to do this, and I understand why. It's a very touchy subject. But when they did this with JBL back in the day, between JBL and Rey Mysterio, something that you would see is that it was clear who the villain is. The villain was JBL going after illegals. So the WWE, no matter where they might political lean, the extreme of each side is usually the villain. That's just the way politics actually is. The extreme of each side is the villain. So the extreme here coming out of Lacey Evans to attack the LWO like they're some illegals, which they're not, it gets the heat on Lacey Evans, and it makes people want to start rooting for the LWO. Now, of course, on social media, you're going to have the tribalism probably when it comes to political nonsense. But pro wrestling should take chances, but you can't do that. I mean, they are on Fox, so maybe Fox would actually let them make Lacey Evans a more conservative character like she is on Twitter. She already does this on the intense social media. But the WWE can't take those chances these days. But this is my fantasy booking. And Lacey Evans is the villain here, being this awful with Zelina Vega and the LWO. I would then have the Brawling Brutes out wanting to beat the shit out of Pretty Deadly for always being in their business lately. But I would have Pretty Deadly escape and the Brawling Brutes end up beating up on Grayson Waller instead. Next up, let's actually develop Austin Theory for once again. Because like I said, he's all over the place. So let's make his persona make some sense. I would have Pretty Deadly in the back, kind of making fun of Austin Theory for picking Butch last week because of his sides. Poking fun at Austin Theory if he's actually afraid of bigger competition like Sheamus or faster competition like Santos Escobar. And Theory starts getting vulnerable with his friends, Pretty Deadly, and admits that how he is always so confident on the outside, but sometimes on the inside, he still feels like a scared young man who just always wanted to be a wrestler. Austin Theory, you could find old videos of Austin Theory on YouTube when he was a teenager trying to come up in pro wrestling. But after he's become so vulnerable with his friends here, Pretty Deadly just laughs at him. And then Theory kind of plays it off like he's just kidding, and he could be any of these guys, and he tries to make himself seem confident on the outside again. But you kind of opened the curtain here a little bit to Austin Theory's character actually being vulnerable, actually talking about why sometimes he seems so confident, and sometimes they have him looking like a chicken shit hill. Give a reason for it, and that's the way to develop Austin Theory, in my opinion. Even though that him becoming vulnerable is a little baby-face-ish, but that's okay. It's gray characters are okay. Next, I would have Cameron Grimes interviewed in the back with his match coming up. But Scarlett walks up to him and interrupts the interview. And then Karrion Kross attacks Grimes and basically tries to injure Grimes' arm. But security has a hard time getting Kross off of Grimes, and he does seem to end up hurting Grimes' arm. Grimes is in pain and not able to compete tonight. I said this in one of my last videos. I think so far in my booking, I do like injury angles a little too much, but hey, it is what it is. I would have Corbin walk up to an injured Grimes and laugh at him. This kind of plays into Scarlett approaching Corbin on what I had the last episode, and now we're seeing development here. You get Karrion Kross involved. I feel like the US title scene on SmackDown is a way to get more people involved. So Grimes can't make the number one contender match, so it's just Sheamus versus Escobar, but it once again ends in a no contest because of interference by Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly, and then LWO and Brawling Brutes going at each other. So while everybody's brawling and secure, I would have this be a mega brawl. A brawl that makes security have to break it up. And Adam Pearce is upset with Austin Theory, saying he messed up. Because if Austin Theory is so afraid of having a number one contender, then Austin Theory has to fight everyone. This, of course, freaks Theory out, wanting to know what Pearce means, but Adam Pearce says he'll find out what that means next week. On the June 30th go-home show, a SmackDown in London, Lacey Evans approaches Cameron Grimes, who has his arm is doing better. It's not severely injured. But Lacey Evans says he will help him out against Karrion Kross and Scarlett when Grimes heals up more. But Grimes is apprehensive to work with Lacey Evans because Grimes heard Lacey Evans talking last week. You could even play it up like Cameron Grimes doesn't really want to associate with Lacey Evans because Grimes doesn't want to get canceled. But Evans thinks that Grimes will come around and tells Cameron Grimes not to be one of those snowflakes. You know, JBL a few months ago used to call everybody snowflakes. That can go to Lacey Evans now, because it'll get a pop out of the crowd that acts like Lacey Evans, even though the same crowd that calls people snowflakes, if I were to call them the villain in the storyline, they would whine and cry about it like snowflakes is the funny part to me. Lastly, the Waller effect with Pretty Deadly and Austin Theory would take place on this June 30th London Raw. And Waller stirs up stuff between Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly, and calls out Pretty Deadly for not listening to Austin Theory's feelings last week. On my Bloodline video, I said that Grayson Waller could be a really great shit stirrer here, and once again I would have Waller stirring more shit. I would have Waller call out Theory for what he is. He says that Theory is the man who sees his US Championship as a shield from scrutiny, to feel like he is not the boy from a year ago who was a failure. And Theory tries to deny that, and all three men are getting upset with Waller here, but Waller doesn't care because he's upset with Pretty Deadly because he blames Pretty Deadly for the Brawling Brutes kicking his ass last week. So you could even have Waller yapping with Pretty Deadly here, who I think are kind of similar characters at times. It makes all these people in the ring more entertaining. Also, building up Austin Theory as a more solid character, because if you want to make Austin Theory, whose character in real WWE right now that is all over the place, and you want to make more sense, show more that he is the man, that his US title is a shield from scrutiny, because he was a failure for so long here at the WWE. He was a joke, and now he sees the US title as his shield. The hey look, Ma, I'm not a failure. Theory interrupts all the drama and says the only reason he's on the Waller effect this week is to give Grayson Waller a rub. But he's really out here because he wants Adam Pearce to come out here and let him know what he has to do at Money in the Bank, because Pearce said he has to fight everybody. Pearce comes out and says the match at Money in the Bank will be Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly versus the Brawling Brutes versus Santos Escobar, Rey Mysterio, and Joaquin Wilde. A triple six-man tag, but whoever gets the pin in that match wins the US title. And slowly but surely, Pretty Deadly starts to realize that one of them could win the US title if they get the pin. And you could even make it seem like Theory is fighting back both rage and tears, because now anyone could win his title, because it's such a wild match. Anyone could win the title by getting the pin or submission in that match, including his tag partners Pretty Deadly, who he's already having tensions with because they're not really listening to his feelings. Pretty Deadly they go to war with him, but do they even actually like him? I think these are a way to set up a ton of different dynamics here. This was definitely some ambitious booking for this storylines here, or storylines, but I feel like the US title scene needs some spicing up. And I think you could spice up Lacey Evans to be this heel magnet like she can be on social media. Just put her on TV being that way. If people get offended, they're characters, for sake. And you could also have tension between Theory and Pretty Deadly. The Brutes and LWO have tension because they've had brawls with each other, and it makes for a wild triple six-man tag at Money in the Bank. I will book Money in the Bank next as we get closer to the real Money in the Bank.